Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another wonderful episode, 52 authors, 52 weeks. And today I have the distinct privilege, honor to be joined with an author who has not, like most of our guests, has written, we're talking about one book, but my guest today, Faust Ruggiero, has written three books in the Fix Your Book series. So before we dig into the books in the series, tell our listening and viewing audience about your background, and then we'll talk about fixing the things.
Thanks, Lisa, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate the invitation. As far as I'm concerned, I've been counseling people for 40 years. I've, kind of born into this. It was, something that kind of selected me, and I'm thrilled that it did. It's been a wonderful life doing it. And then about 7 years ago, I decided I was going to start to write some books. So I researched what I had to do. How do you become an author? The whole publishing industry, all that kind of stuff, and then started writing. So the first book came out in 2019, and there were two last year, and it looks like there are going to be two this year. So we just keep on going. As I say, you keep chipping away, you keep on putting the information out there, and hopefully people are going to read it and maybe make some changes in their lives.
I love it. So there's a couple of connections I want to make between the two of us that you had no idea that I was going to share with you. So number one, I live in the Chicagoland area, and you graduated from Illinois State
I did.
University. So I thought that was pretty cool to learn about you. But something that was, there's two things that are deep. One is that early in your career, you worked with individuals that had deafness, profound deafness. And so my oldest daughter, Jasmine, who is 32 today, has profound to severe sensory neural hearing loss in one ear and profound in the other. And as a young woman, when I first found out about her many diagnoses, I experienced a period where I was suffering from depression to the extent that I tried to take my life. And it wasn't until the pumping of the stomach, the few hours that I spent at the psychiatric hospital, I realized in that moment that she deserved more. But back then, I didn't have the tools to, navigate that situation. And I grew up in a Black family, and, there everything is about Jesus is going to work it out, right? And I do believe in faith, but I do believe in therapy, getting help, recognizing when you need help. And I encounter so many people on a day-to-day basis, and I'm no medical doctor, right? My degree is in healthcare administration, but I see people in my day-to-day walk who are suffering, and instead of getting the help that they need, they intentionally or unintentionally hurt others. And I believe the Fix It series is what they need because it's something that you can read in your secret place without anybody judging you, right? You can click a button on Amazon and buy the book and take it home or to the library or wherever and read through it and start to learn about yourself and hopefully get some help.
Lisa, when I started writing the book, of course, before you start, if you do things properly, you do your literature review and you see what's out there and how they're doing things. And what I saw was a lot of information, and people were giving great information, but it seemed to stop there. And they didn't say, well, based on all this information, do these things now. And that's what we do in counseling. When I counsel people, I say, okay, we're going through the information, we're tearing your life apart. But then I'm saying, now do these couple things this week. Let's see how well you do. If you have trouble when you come back next week, we'll tweak those things. So I always have, and I have that if you're reading the books, I have all those at the end of every chapter. My chapters are 5 or 6, maybe 7 pages, so it's not a ton of reading to do. Then it goes to what you can do to help yourself. That's what I thought was missing in the literature. And going back to what you were saying with your story, so many parents have these things happening with their kids. And when I signed on to do the work with the deaf kids, I thought I was doing just behavioral stuff with the kids because, sensory changes, the brain changes and processing changes. And then I realized I was also needing to help the parents because until I could bring them aboard and helping them to stop fearing this whole thing. And you can see that not just in parents, if there's someone with what we call a disability, whatever, and you get closer to them, people are standoffish. They don't know what to say. They focus on the disability rather than just going in and say, "Hey, how are you?" like any other person. So there was a lot of that to go on. It's the same thing in the books. Here's the information. Here's what you're dealing with. Do these things, and you'd be surprised how people are responding to it because I've given them something to do, not just read.
I love it. I love it. One of the favorite parts of the fix fix your depression handbook is I like, and we're not going to give them all the jewels from the book, right? Because we want them to buy the book so that they can experience it for themselves. But the first thing that I really enjoyed were the categories and descriptions at the beginning. And my favorite one, I over E, intellect over emotions. And why this was so impactful for me, I recently went through a situation where I had to exercise my emotional intelligence by being my own emotional boss. And it really saved me from being a different person in a situation, which really was one where there were others involved. And everybody was just like, it was amazing how you responded. And it's that skill. So I was like, oh, I didn't just make that up. It's a real concept. And I think sometimes we are experiencing things and we don't know that there's a actual name for it. And so reading the definitions in the front of the book before you actually get to each chapter was helpful because then you tie it to each chapter, right? And so I love that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. That's what that was designed for. I call them the processes, and there are 52 of them, and that's one of the big ones, getting honest with yourself. But that intellect over emotion, I over E, is nothing more than getting your brain to kind of, jump in the picture before your emotions do. Your emotions still get their say. We want that. We don't want you to, we're not training Vulcans here. We're trying to get people to the point where they understand that if something happens before I go, oh my God, and then I do this, I say, let me just take a step back. Let me breathe a moment. Let me think about this and examine the information and my options. Now I can say how I feel about doing all that. But if I reverse that, it's an energy thing. Now you put all your energy into your emotions and not into your intellectual abilities. And the key about this is that people keep thinking about emotions as it's a heart thing. Emotions and intellect are in the brain. They're both in your brain. So what part of your brain gets the energy is your choice. And a lot of people will say, gee, I wear my heart on my sleeve kind of thing. And I say it's a training situation. You train your brain. Any of us who have taught people, we know that learning is nothing more than being able to introduce change over time. And your brain learns it. And if we keep on doing that, and the way to do I over E is simply not wait till a crisis happens, because then you're not going to do it. It's every day, little things happen. That little thing, and you back up and say, let me think about this. And just slow the process down a bit. You're talking 10 seconds. Give your brain enough time to think. You're redistributing your energy to your thought processes. That's all you're doing.
It's so interesting that you said 10 seconds because in a recent situation that I was in, I recorded it and you could hear me verbally in a 10-second time frame make some decisions about how I was going to react. And it literally was 10 seconds. And so you just gave me confirmation, and you're giving everybody the confirmation that these techniques, processes are real. It's not something that you made up. They're factual. And I like how in the front of the book where you talk about fact versus fiction, I was like, I was like really thinking through this, and it was clear to me as a person who loves to read, who loves to research, that you did your homework before you presented these facts. And so actually I admire this process that you did in a book that I'm going to be releasing soon. I need to go back and rethink, evaluate, reflect the journey that the reader is going to go through, all because of looking at your book. I was like, let's press pause.
And, I did that originally. I did what many authors do. I said, let me start writing. Then I started looking at this and I said, I got a lot of stuff here, but it's not making any sense. I could see it. I went back and I rethought things and came up with the first book, the Fix Yourself Handbook. And that was where I put the whole design together, how it was going to look. I started with a title. I give a nice inspirational quote to help drive it. All the processes that we use are listed. Then starts all the information. It takes it into the action steps at the end and just a paragraph to close it out. And it went over so well that I said, you know what? I'm going to keep the same design for every book. And that's what I'm doing, because that design, now people are coming back and saying, yeah, I bought the first one and the second and now the third. And it's so easy because the design is the same. And since the chapters are short, it's a reference book. So when you say, gee, my emotions are coming back and they're running right over my intellect, you can go back to that chapter and say, okay, what did he say here? What did this say? What do I have to do? And start. You're not starting from the beginning. You're going back and just familiarizing yourself with what you did before.
I love it. And so for me as a reader, anyone that's ever seen me read, I always have a pen and a highlighter handy
Oh, me
because
too.
I'm writing notes in the margin, I'm highlighting, I'm thinking, I'm reflecting. Sometimes I'm crying, but I'm allowing myself to go through the full gamut of emotions because it is my desire to continue to grow until I leave this earth. And at 51, who doesn't look 51, right?
Right.
I I just want to continue to be the best version of myself. And no matter where you see me, I want you to see the same person. I'm always smiling. I'm always um, looking for the good in people, even in those situations where people are showing me different. But I try to show up as my authentic self every place I go to, because that's when I'm the happiest, when I'm just being myself. It's a lot of work to be somebody else.
Well, it's a lot of work to be someone else and to put up those masks and those facades that we want other people to see. And then sooner or later they come down and the people say, what? And I agree. Again, that's a process of slowing things down and not going in there with all these ideas about what has to be. The only thing that has to be, I always say, is me. That's all. I just have to be me and go in and calmly be nice to people and smile and listen to them while they're talking, because that's what they would love and I would too, and have a nice conversation. It's so easy.
It is. And you're more relaxed when you tap in and you
Mhm.
just slow down. To me, that keeps you young, keeps you young.
Well, sure it does. It keeps you learning. In the first book, I have a chapter on wisdom, and I talk about the ability to put that learning, continued learning. Never relinquish studenthood, and take that and combine it with humility. And if you do that, it keeps the learning process going because you never get to the point that you think you got it. Because the moment
Absolutely.
you think you got it is when you stop getting it. So, if a young person comes in and I think, well, they don't know that much, but I'll listen to them and they may leave and I might say, gee, I never thought about that. Or the world's changing and that one's living it. And I'm not in it every day, but I got that piece that I
Yeah.
may need to use with the next person or even myself.
Absolutely. And as a healthcare leader, I encourage other leaders to participate in reverse mentoring. I think oftentimes, there's four generations of professionals in healthcare. And I think oftentimes we think, oh, the Gen Z, they can't teach us anything. When in actuality, there's a lot of things that they can teach us based on their lens of life, which is different than ours. Like my grandmother said to me, a single woman should not buy a house, right? And then I bought the house and she was like, oh, well, you're not married yet, so you might as well buy the house. But as I got older, I realized that the advice she was giving me was how she was raised in her time. And for a long time, I resented her for it. But once I took time to slow down, and it's unfortunate that she died before I could tell her, hey, grandmother, I'm sorry that I reacted that way. But I realized she gave me information based on what she knew at the time. But in some respects, I also believe that my grandmother wasn't willing to grow. So, like, she had a cassette tape, and when the CDs came out, she was refusing to get a CD. And then I think about my father, who has a reel to reel, 8-track, a LP record player. He still has all of these things today, but he continued to grow with the technology, which really is keeping his mind sharp.
And again, you keep on learning. I do a lot of corporate work, nationally and internationally, and I do a lot of work with the HR departments, and they'll come in and say, we can't deal with these young people. And I say, well, you're going to. They are there and they are the future, and you got to stop looking at them like they're aliens. They process differently because that's where this world is. When I was a kid, there was no computers and cell phones. You had one phone on the wall in the house. You had to ask your parents, "Could I use it?" Yes. Can I use it? No, you cannot use it. Or if it rang during dinner time, leave it right there. Now these kids are part of information processing. Everything goes fast. The way they think is different. You're either going to learn to understand that, or you're not. And kids will come in, and parents bring their kids in. You got to bring this. I have to bring this kid in. He's calling himself they. I said, all right, let's bring it. Something's wrong with him. No, it's just the way things are today. There's a loving, wonderful person in there. Let's go find that person and help that person identify with whoever they are. Find what they want. They have so many options. There's so many things they're presented with. We didn't have that. We didn't have those kind of choices. We had rules that we followed, just like you said. When I was young, you're going to get married, you're going to raise a family, you're going to go be the breadwinner, you're going to do all that kind of stuff, and it's different now. But again, if you say I'm going to keep on learning, that person is a source of education, of learning for me, then I keep my game green, and that's what I want to keep on doing.
I love it. So I always make this statement that I'm learning faster than I'm growing. But also another book that I read, which was powerful, was about being a learner versus a judger. And I
Mhm.
think that oftentimes those of us that are older, we're so busy judging the younger folks, and we should take the time to learn what they know, because then you will walk away with some information like, whoa, I didn't even think about it that way. That's a much streamlined way to do it. But we just immediately write them off because, oh, you're 21, you don't know anything.
It's a fad. Yeah, it's all that kind of stuff. You know what I do? I just ask questions. For two reasons. One is for me to learn. The other is to help them learn, because sometimes they will jump onto something because it's trending, whatever it may be. But if I ask them questions and then they have to go deep and get some answer and some information, they themselves are accessing some new things, and that goes back and forth. And that conversation then becomes a very nice learning conversation on both ends. So questions instead of judgments, questions not designed to trap them or tell them I don't agree with that, then why did you do this kind of thing. If you're going to ask questions, ask like you're asking a teacher, because that's why you're asking the question. Maybe they can teach you something. Ask the question like that and put them in a position to communicate with you. It's really very simple.
Absolutely. So if someone wanted to start your series, should they start at the beginning? What should be the flow?
Yeah, if it were me, I would start with the Fix Yourself Handbook. That's kind of the flagship book. In fact, the other books are coming out of that one. That has 36 different chapters on all different kinds of problems. The second book is about anxiety only. Again, comes from the first one. There's a chapter there. Depression, the same thing. Okay, we saw some depression addressed in the first book. The new one is on anger. The next one's going to be on addiction. And then, we're probably going to go into faith and relationships and things like that as we proceed. But the first one lays the foundation, also teaches you how to work with all the processes.
I love it. I love it. So I guess I need to hurry and book this cruise so I can go on there and read and fix myself in some areas. And I think that that's one problem that people have. They think that they don't need to be fixed.
It's an insecurity, and it's, okay, I don't want to put these weaknesses out there. I got this. I don't want to think I have these weaknesses. I don't want to do all this work. And I keep telling them it's not work. If you get up every day and say, okay, I got to do a little better on this, or I'm going to do the best I can. I got to open my mind up to some things and do it every day. It just becomes fun. There's a thing in the mind that's called habit formation. Whatever you introduce your brain learns and it becomes your new comfort zone, and I say step out of your comfort zone, because most of the time they're toxic after a while. Step out, stretch a bit, learn some new things, meet people that you never thought you were going to, just like you said, I'm going to tell you some things and we're going to connect in with ways we didn't even know. And we're doing that. That's what you do. You step out of your comfort zone, you do some new things, you talk to some new people, your brain adjusts, and now it becomes the new way you do things. Hello to a new world.
And you know what? When you first of all, get comfortable being uncomfortable and
Exactly.
allow yourself to be open to exploring, shifting your mindset from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, you start to experience life like you never have before. And I'm talking about something that I did, that I'm doing, that I'm on the other side of it, still in one phase of transition thinking, why did I wait so long? I could have been enjoying this life, but I allowed myself to be stuck in the one phase of my life when I could have been doing other things.
And you're right. And that uncomfort zone is your learning zone. I always tell people, they'll ask me, how do I know if I'm learning? I say, you get uncomfortable. Why? Because it's all new information and your brain hasn't processed it yet, has not put it into a perspective where it's going to be included in your life. So it's going to be uncomfortable. But that's where the learning is. And all you have to do is stop resisting it. Slow down a bit and just take your time. If you're resisting it, your emotions are in play. Now it's that E over I now. We want I over E. Let your brain say, okay, I got some new stuff here. Let me see how I'm going to deal with this. Almost every time you're going to come through, you're going to realize just how confident and powerful you can be just by doing that.
Confident and powerful. I think those two words are what's missing from most of our journeys. We lack the confidence, maybe because of imposter syndrome. We don't think that we deserve things, or we just allow fear to keep holding us back. And I don't know about you, at a young, tender age of 51, I'm no longer afraid to go after the things that I've been seeing in my dreams. There are things that I'm experiencing now that I have afforded myself the opportunity to experience because I started doing the fix. But if you would
And
have asked me 45 years ago or 5 years ago if I would be in this place, I probably would have said no.
and most people would, but and again, it's not brain surgery, so to speak. All it is just getting up every day and tuning in and saying, I'm going to learn some things. I make it a little thing in my brain every day. Today and I say it every morning, today I am going to learn. That's all. I know I can teach. I know I can counsel. These things are natural to me. I do that very well. But I always say I am going to learn. And what that does, it takes me back a little bit and lets me hear other people, not judge. If someone's doing something or saying something, I assume there's a reason for that. Let me go find out the reason. I might find a whole new process that I never used. At the very least, I will have connected with someone, and the love back and forth creates a whole new world.
I love it. I
Simple.
love it. So you wake up saying every day that you're going to learn. I wake up every day saying I'm going to grow. I am challenging myself to do something different that I would not have ordinarily done. So I'm learning, but I'm also taking some time to reflect and think about what others do. So for example, my husband uses television as a de-stressor, right? He works a very stressful job, and when his day is over, he sits in front of the TV and he just watches TV, and he's very calm and can go to sleep and sleep like a baby. Meanwhile, yours truly, oftentimes my mind is going a million miles a
I'm
minute.
with you.
And I have to go through, like, I've seen the psychologist, right? We're like, we got a weighted blanket, we got some chamomile tea, we got to take a shower, we got to do this whole routine. Whereas he is just like, so I actually tried what I call the Paul process. His name is Paul. And it really does work. Like just a midday of watching something interesting on TV, just allowing myself to unplug and be in the moment. And for a long time, I was like, I'm cutting the cable off. All you do is, watch TV. But that was his way of dealing with the pressures of work. And I had to think about, what if he didn't use the television as an outlet? Would he take his stress out on me or the kids, right? So I had to respect his process. But TV isn't the only thing that he does. He has a bunch of other things that he does, but that was the one that I was fixated on for a long time. And I had to let it go, but I had to understand it first.
And that's the key. My wife has a stressful job. She does the same thing. And I remember saying a lot of time there, but she works hard. At the end of the day, it's physical, and she has to be able just to kick back and relax. And meanwhile, I'm still going. And I'm like you, I have a routine I get into starting at around 10 o'clock so that by midnight I can fall asleep. And it's not worriment. It's not, I'm too excited. My body just has this motor that keeps on going. It's just the way it is. And it's not uncommon at 11 o'clock to say, ooh, if I put that in the book, that's going to help. And then I come back to the computer and I make a note at least to tomorrow, do this. That's just the way it is. So again, you're right. You listen to them, you learn why they're doing it. You don't judge, you let them be who they want to be. And what they give back to you is a nice gift in the process.
It is. You really packaged that up and put a nice little bow on it. I love it. That's why you're the professional therapist and I am the growth motivator.
There you go.
So, other than the books, what does the future hold for you and your brand and those that you serve?
Yeah, I have a publicist who works hard for me, and we're doing a lot of interviews. The next step is probably we have a celebrity campaign. Some celebrities are working with us. So we're going to try to get this into a media format with their help, and start getting more, maybe moving more into television and into things like that. We've started doing it. I've done a bunch of it already. I enjoy it. I love, this concept because you're always meeting nice people. You're able to teach. When I can meet people and teach and get those messages out, that's nice. So we're going to move ahead with that kind of thing. I'll continue to write, I'm sure. But in the meantime, I think media is the next step up.
I love it. So then I'll be able to say, I did do an interview.
There you go.
But it's so good to meet all the different professionals that I've had an opportunity to meet with, because I just feel so honored and so blessed to meet you in this virtual space and learn from you via your books. So listen, everybody, we need you to go out and purchase. Listen, I recommend doing what I did. I bought all three at one time because I was just like, oh, these are related. And so for me, I have this quirky thing that I do. If I find a dress that I like, I buy it in all the colors. Same dress, all the different colors, same with shoes, everything. So when I saw the three books, I was thinking, yeah, you need all three of them. But I think what's more important is if you are a person that's struggling and you need something to help you start your journey, all you got to do is just take the first step. And then once you take the first step, the journey, you'll find out that you won't be alone. And that's how I felt, because when I was going through the depression, I was alone. And it wasn't until my stomach was pumped out and I was in that room that I was like, snap out of it, girl. But did I truly resolve whatever the issue was that I was experiencing? And I believe that I did because I don't harbor over it anymore. And I actually am able to help other moms that have children with intellectual disabilities who feel alone. And you don't need to feel alone in the journey. You just need to have the tools. It's like an electrician that's going to rewire something. You need the tools and you need the training, you need the information.
It's such a good point. Listen, I tell people that if depression, particularly, you stay alone, even anxiety, we don't want anyone to know, so we hide it. But then we're in our own heads with it over and over, same negative message growing. Why be alone? Come out, get some help. Let us help you. We'll wrap our arms around you, and then you can learn what you need to learn and know that, you know what, this is okay. It's not who I am, it's what I have. I keep telling people that these conditions should not define you. If you have cancer, they're out championing it. Well, we're going to fight this, but we don't do that with mental health stuff. We hide it yet. We need to get out there and say, you know what, I got this, and I'm going to deal with it, and I'm going to get the help, and I'm going to follow the steps I have to follow, and I'm going to beat this.
You
We
know
we
what?
need to be able to say that.
That's so true. I'm just thinking back. Alcoholics Anonymous, right? You have things in place for certain conditions, but the condition that is having a huge impact on us all is the one that we have the least amount of resources for.
Because we're still in the mode that we're going to keep it a secret. And even the therapists are careful about how they ask questions. And come on, we have to open this thing up. When you were talking about what's next, that's how we're talking about this thing. We need to open up a huge vehicle so everyone comes aboard and we're all out there with the same message. So people can jump on this and say, yeah, that's okay. I want to be part of that. That's what I want to do. I want to go where these people are going. That's the educational next step in this process, the next therapeutic step. We have to stop doing this individually. We have to get out there and pull together and let people know that it's okay. We got you, and you're going to get through this.
I love this one big, large arm that's wrapped around everyone.
Yeah.
No matter where we come from, what we look like, who we love, just all of us that have, two kidneys, heart, lungs, anyone that meets that criteria, we're here to help them.
I've always said through 40 years and thousands of people that I've counseled, I have never met one person I couldn't love. Not one. It's all inside, and it's the theme I tell everyone. All the good stuff is inside you. You just have to know how to go get it. That's all. And that's all I'm teaching. I'm teaching you how to, purge the garbage out of your life and start accessing all those good things about yourself. You'll find that's where you're going to find who are actually going to create who you are. You're not going to go look and find it. You're going to create it. You're going to have all that power inside you, and you're going to say, this is who I want to be.
You know what? And I'm just going to be my last point. So when I was reading the Fix Your Depression Handbook, I'm pretty sure I read this, that we each as an individual are unique, right? Just like our fingerprint. And so we have to recognize that we have the tools inside of us. We just need to pull them out. And we need something to help us pull them out so we can move forward.
And you did. You read it in that book. I'm trying to tell people that some of your depression meets these standards, if you will, what everybody gets. But your life is your life, your genetics, the way you think, the way you feel. So your depression is going to be a product of that. So that's where you come in and you talk to someone and say, this is who I am. One person where, you go and say, I can feel safe in there. You open up and you start getting all the past stuff out of the picture, all the negative thinking and the way you talk to yourself, which is a lot of times is so negative. Get that out of the picture and learn how to go in and learn how to like yourself and like your world. That's what's going to lead to that self-love you're looking for. But just don't do it alone.
Yes, yes. Well, listen, it has been such an honor and a privilege to meet you. I'm so excited that I put out the call, you answered the call, and now together we are helping others. So your website and all of that is going to be scrolling across the bottom so everyone knows how to contact you. I cannot wait to see on a television show that you are there, because I'm going to be behind the television screaming and hollering saying, it was a day in 2024.
Whatever the Lord wants, I'm there. In the meantime, I'm just chipping away every day. That's the way I look at it.
I love it. I love it. Well, do you have any final parting words before we say goodbye?
Yeah, just to the listeners, don't be afraid of moving forward. Don't approach this as a chore and that you're some broken person who's ugly on the inside, because you're not. All the beauty is in there. You're going to pull off some things that don't feel good right away, but what you're going to find is a beautiful person in there. We all have it. Everything we need is already inside us. We just need some help to kind of open it up and let all the good stuff out.
I love it. You have everything you need. I love it. I love it. Well, listen, everyone, this has been another episode, 52 authors, amazing authors, 52 weeks. I'll see you next time.